Welcome to Part 3 of the Business Strategy Game Overview and Orientation. Part 3 will cover BSG assignments other than the simulation itself, as well as tips and advice for the simulation. At the end of the simulation, there will be peer evaluation forms for you to complete. For the BSG peer and self-evaluations, you will be asked a series of multiple-choice questions regarding your behavior and that of each of your teammates. I am the only person who will see these evaluations, so please feel free to be honest in your evaluation of your fellow teammates. The BSG peer evaluation will calculate an average of the evaluations and return a percentage out of 100. This is the number that I will multiply times 50 in order to get the number of points for this assignment. Students who do not complete the self and peer evaluations will receive a 0 for this assignment. I mentioned in an earlier presentation that I like the BSG because it is interactive and it gives you the chance to really test your business skills. This list breaks down in more detail the specific skills you will be developing and practicing through the use of this simulation. All of them are highly valued managerial skills, but these skills aren't just valuable to managers, they are valuable to employees as well. Who wouldn't want an employee who is able to analyze data or understand revenue, cost, profit relationships? And if you were hiring someone to work for you, wouldn't you want them to have the ability to make sound, responsible business decisions? The simulation can be a very eye-opening experience. You can learn so much from it if you are willing to put in the work. It can also be a great topic to discuss in job interviews. It is active versus passive learning. If you have not already registered, here's a quick guide to getting started. The company registration code can be found on the syllabus. As far as payment goes, you can purchase directly from the BSG using a credit or debit card, or you can purchase an access card from the bookstore. All students must be registered in order to receive a grade other than 0 for the BSG. Here are some suggested procedures. The first is about your company's name. There is no need to type the first letter. For example, if you are Team A and you are going to name your team Acme, you would type in CME. The A is already in the name. You'll be assigned a team letter once the teams have been assembled, and then you should choose a name for your team that begins with the letter that you've been assigned. As far as requirements for the name, there are none other than it should not be the name of an already well-known brand. For example, you cannot name your team Adidas or Adidas if you are Team A. Also, please make your company name something other than your initials. It should be something that's either a word or a phrase, or it can be, and the word or phrase can be in English or another language, as long as you have a good reason for choosing it. I've already emphasized the importance of reading the player's guide, but I'll say it again. The player's guide is your friend. Spend some quality time with it. Also, know the schedule. Occasionally I have had teams who completely forgot about a decision year. When that happens, the game just uses the same decisions you made the year before. While that might be okay, most of the time some changes are necessary, and forgetting to make needed changes can cause quite a bit of damage to the company's performance. Anyone can save decisions, which is good if you want to designate certain members to make certain decisions. However, it is important that students understand that after the team has agreed on the decisions, no one should go back in and make changes. This has caused problems in groups before when one member made changes after the team meeting and before the decision deadline. Here are several other tips and pieces of advice for the simulation. Watch the video tutorials. They are helpful in learning where things are and how the items on a page are related to one another. If you have a question and you can't find the answer in a video or in the player's guide, check the help pages for that set of decisions. If you still can't find the answer to your question, email the help desk. The folks at the BSG are usually very quick in responding to student questions. The BSG has recommended decision-making procedures. If you make the decisions in the same order every week, you are less likely to forget to make one. If you don't like the order suggested by the BSG, come up with your own, but try to follow the same procedures every week. Remember the importance of using the practice rounds. You may not get points directly for these decisions, but they help you to do better in the game itself, and thus indirectly help you earn points. The simulation allows you to take risks, but remember the risks that you take should be realistic risks. By that I mean you should not take risks that no reasonable company would consider. Companies fail by being too risky, but they can also fail by being too conservative. Make decisions that are realistic. Do not try to eliminate risk. Try to estimate it, and take the risks that look like they will have a good payoff. Remember that anyone on the team can make a decision. As I said, in the past, I've had groups where the members agreed on a set of decisions, but then one member went back in and made some changes just to see what would happen, but they didn't change things back. That can make for some very upset teammates. I recommend you designate someone to be responsible for verifying the decisions are what the team agreed on before the decisions run. The most recently saved decisions are the one that will be used. When it comes to processing information, some students process better when they read information, others do better when they hear it, and some folks do better when they see a picture or visual representation of the information. For that reason, I highly recommend that as you work through the player's guide, you try to create a flowchart or a map of how the decisions can affect one another. Although everyone is expected to know the basics of the player's guide, it can sometimes be helpful for team members to designate subject matter experts. In other words, divide up the decisions and assign responsibility to each team member for becoming an expert in their assigned areas. Everyone still participates in the decision-making, but if there is a question about a particular area, the subject matter expert can be called upon for additional input. All decisions have a cascading effect, so a decision in one area will have an effect in others. You have a finite amount of money you can spend, and you must decide what your priorities are. Track your costs from the beginning. Track your costs from the beginning. Be proactive. Know what your costs are from the start. Don't be a pendulum. A pendulum is that piece of a clock that swings back and forth. Change is necessary, and sometimes radical change is necessary. But if you try to be a low-cost provider one year and then a premium differentiator the next, and then decide to go back to the low-cost provider strategy, you're going to see some negative impacts on your sales. Think about it in the real world. If Walmart suddenly tried to be Saks Fifth Avenue, how would their customers respond? And then if they tried to go back, what would their customers do? Lastly, remember to think long-term. If you get too wrapped up in thinking only about the next year, you will find it difficult to end up where you want to be at the end of the game. It is tempting to sacrifice the long-term for the short-term, but it can lead to some pretty unhappy outcomes in the end. I will conclude with a few remarks about the game scores. I will convert the BSG score to a percentage and multiply that times 250 in order to get the points for the BSG. If your team scores 100, that means 100%, and so you would receive 250 points. If your team scores above 100, then that means your team will earn bonus points on the simulation. It is also possible for more than one team to make an A. I've had semesters where almost every team earned an A, and one semester where they all did. The opposite is also possible. Don't let the fact that there is a competitive element to the game stress you more than it should. You should approach this simulation with a sense of healthy competition and good sportsmanship. Just like in any sport, it is possible to play hard, play by the rules, and have fun. As a note of comfort to those of you who are still uncertain and worried about the simulation, it is possible to completely bomb the simulation and still get a B in this class. It won't be easy because you will have to do well on all the other assignments, but it is possible. Remember that technical questions and problems should be addressed directly with the BSG help desk. If there are things that are unclear in the BSG instructions, they need to know about it so they can address them. If, however, your question is about strategy or something related to the class, then feel free to ask me. Okay, that wraps up the overview of the BSG. I hope you found these presentations helpful. I wish you all the best, and I look forward to the start of the simulation.